The sun was setting over the small fishing town of Hainem when G threw her line into the calm waters. At 16, she had spent countless evenings at this same spot on the rocky shore. The familiar weight of the fishing rod in her hands brought comfort after a long day of school. Just one good catch, she whispered to herself, watching the orange light dance across the waves. Jay loved the ocean more than anything. Her room at home was filled with books about marine life and drawings of sea creatures she hoped to study. One day, her parents teased her, saying she was born with salt water in her veins. "When I become a marine biologist," she often told her friends, "I will discover a new species and name it after my grandmother." The evening was quiet, except for the gentle lapping of waves against the shore. Jai checked her watch. She had promised to be home by 9 for dinner. Her mother was making kimchi jjigae, her favorite stew. The thought made her stomach rumble. That was when she noticed the silence. The evening insects had stopped chirping. Even the waves seemed to still. A strange heaviness filled the air, pressing against her ears. Jai looked up from her fishing line. The sky had changed. A light, brighter than the moon but softer than the sun, hung above the water. It was perfectly round and gave off a pale blue glow that reminded Jay of the bioluminescent algae she had once seen on a school trip. "What is that?" she whispered, standing up slowly. The light began to grow, expanding until it was 3 times the size of the full moon. Gi knew she should run, call someone, do anything but stand frozen in place. Yet she couldn't look away. A thin beam shot down from the light, touching the water about 50 meters from shore. The surface didn't splash or ripple. It simply parted, creating a perfect circle of dry air that reached down into the depths. Gia fumbled for her phone to take a picture. Her hands shook so badly that she dropped it onto the rocks. As she bent to pick it up, a second beam appeared, this one aimed directly at her. The world went silent. Gia felt her feet leave the ground, her fishing rod slipping from her fingers. She tried to scream, but no sound came. The beam lifted her gently, inexorably upward toward the light. "Help," she mouthed, but there was no one to see. The last thing she saw was her small town growing smaller below her, the familiar coastline shrinking to a thin line, then vanishing as she passed through an opening in the light. Then darkness. When G woke, she was lying on a smooth, cold surface. Her head pounded and her mouth felt dry. She blinked several times, trying to clear her vision. She was in a small room with walls that seemed to glow from within. There were no visible lights, yet everything was illuminated in a soft blue haze. The room contained nothing but the platform she lay on. "Hello?" she called, her voice sounding strange in the enclosed space. "Is anyone there?" Only silence answered. Gia sat up slowly, fighting a wave of dizziness. She was still wearing her jeans and faded blue hoodie, the same clothes she had worn fishing. Her shoes were missing. She slid off the platform and placed her bare feet on the floor. It was cool, but not uncomfortably so. Taking small steps, she moved toward what looked like a doorway on the far wall. Before she reached it, the wall simply disappeared, revealing a corridor beyond. Jay gasped and stepped back. "Please proceed," said a voice from nowhere and everywhere. The words were in a language Jay had never heard, yet somehow she understood their meaning. It was as if the meaning appeared directly in her mind, bypassing her ears. "Who are you? Where am I?" she asked, pressing herself against the platform. "Please proceed," the voice repeated, neither kind nor unkind, simply stating a fact. Seeing no other option, Jay cautiously stepped into the corridor. As she did, the wall reappeared behind her, sealing off the room she had been in. The corridor curved gently to the left. Gia followed it, her bare feet making no sound on the smooth floor. After walking for what felt like several minutes, she reached another doorway. This one opened as she approached. G stepped through and froze. She stood at the edge of an enormous chamber. The ceiling arched high overhead, glittering with points of light that looked like stars. The far wall was transparent, showing a view that made G's knees go weak. Space. Endless black space filled with distant stars, and hanging in that blackness, blue and green and wrapped in swirling white clouds, was Earth, her home. Tears filled Jay's eyes. Was this real? Had she been taken to some kind of space station? Was she dreaming? Movement caught her eye. On the other side of the chamber, a figure was studying what looked like floating screens of light. The figure was tall and slender, with skin that had a faint bluish tint. Its head was slightly larger than a human's, with no visible hair. It wore a close-fitting suit that seemed to shimmer as it moved. An alien. G was looking at an actual alien. The creature hadn't noticed her yet. G considered trying to hide, to run back the way she came. But where would she go? Before she could decide, another doorway opened, and 3 more of the beings entered. They spoke to each other in that strange language that somehow made sense. To Jai. "The specimens are secure," one said. "All monitoring stations report ready," said another. "The council has given final approval. We may proceed with the removal." Removal? What removal? The aliens gathered around something that looked like a control panel. One of them placed its hand on a glowing surface. "Dimensional shift initiating," it announced. "Phase 1 commencing." A new light appeared on Earth as G watched. It started as a tiny spark on the surface, then spread rapidly. Within seconds, the entire planet was covered in a web of light. "No," Jay whispered, though she didn't understand what was happening. Something terrible was beginning. She could feel it. "Phase 2 engaged," said the alien at the controls. The web of light covering Earth pulsed once, twice, then flared blindingly bright. Jai threw her arm over her eyes. When she lowered it, Earth was gone. Where her planet had been, there was only empty space, as if it had never existed at all. "Earth removal complete," said the alien. "All traces eliminated from dimensional space." A scream tore from G's throat, raw, primal, filled with horror and disbelief. The aliens turned as one, noticing her for the first time. "The human specimen is awake," one said, sounding surprised. "It should not be here," said another. "Return it to stasis immediately." One of the aliens moved toward her, but G.A. barely noticed. She stared at the empty space where Earth had been, where her family, friends, her entire world had existed moments before. They had erased Earth from the stars, but they couldn't erase it from her heart. As the alien reached for her, a single thought formed in G's mind. They would pay for what they had done. Somehow, some way, she would make them pay. Then darkness took her once more. G opened her eyes slowly. A bright light made her squint as her vision adjusted. She was lying on a narrow bed in a small room with pale blue walls. For a moment, she thought she was in a hospital back home. Then she remembered. Earth was gone. She sat up quickly, her heart racing. The sudden movement made her dizzy. She grabbed the edge of the bed to steady herself. "Please remain calm," said a voice. "Your body is still recovering from extended stasis." G.A. looked up to see one of the aliens standing near the door. This one was slightly shorter than the others she had seen. Its skin had the same bluish tint, but its eyes were different, larger, with flecks of gold in the dark pupils. "Who are you?" G.I. asked, her voice rough from disuse. "What have you done with Earth?" The alien stepped closer. "My name is Dohan. I am a biological researcher on this vessel." He paused. "As for your planet, I am sorry. Earth has been removed from dimensional space by order of the Sunwoo Council." "Removed?" Jay felt anger rising within her. "You killed billions of people. My family, my friends, everyone I ever knew." "I know," Dohan said quietly. "I argued against the removal, but the Council's decision was final. Our species, the Sunwoo, has been monitoring Earth for centuries. They determined that humans posed a future threat to galactic stability." Jay wanted to scream, to throw something, to hurt this creature standing so calmly before her. But she was weak and alone in a place she didn't understand. "Why am I still alive?" she asked. "You were collected as a specimen, along with various Earth plants and animals. You were supposed to remain in stasis indefinitely." Dohan moved to a panel on the wall. But I revived you. Why? Because erasure is wrong, he said simply. And because I need your help. He touched the panel, and a door slid open. Come. There is much to explain, and we don't have much time. G.A. hesitated, then stood on shaky legs. What choice did she have? She followed Dohan through corridors that curved gently, passing other Sunwoo who barely glanced at her. Some wore fitted clothing similar to Dohan's, while others wore more elaborate outfits with glowing symbols. Why aren't they surprised to see me? She whispered. They think you are my assistant from a remote Sunwoo colony, Dohan explained. I have altered records to create this identity for you. As long as you stay close to me and don't draw attention, you should be safe. They entered a large room filled with containers of various sizes. Inside each one, G.I. could see plants and small animals from Earth, flowers, trees, birds, and fish. This is my laboratory, Dohan said. I am tasked with studying Earth specimens to determine if any have useful properties. Jay walked slowly between the containers, tears forming in her eyes as she recognized species from home. A maple tree, a robin, a tank of clownfish like the ones she had wanted to study. These are all that's left, she whispered. Dohan touched her shoulder lightly. Yes. And now you. Over the next few weeks, Jay learned to live among the Sunwoo. Dohan taught her their language, though she found she could understand much of it naturally. The Sunwoo had developed technology that transferred linguistic meaning directly to the brain. She learned that the Sunwoo ship was part of a vast fleet. Their civilization spanned hundreds of star systems, all governed by the Central Council. They had achieved remarkable technological advancement. They could bend space, manipulate matter at its most basic level, and extend their lives for centuries. But they were also cold. Logical to a fault. Emotions were seen as primitive, dangerous things to be controlled and eventually eliminated. Our children are taught from birth to value efficiency and logic above all else, Dohan explained one day as they worked together, categorizing Earth insects. We have records of our species once experiencing stronger emotions, but that was long ago. Most Sunwoo see it as progress. But not you? Ji asked. Dohan's eyes flickered. I have always been different. My interest in biology was considered unusual. Most Sunwoo prefer technology and physics. Living things are messy, unpredictable. Like humans, Jai said with a small smile. Yes. Dohan nodded. The council feared your species because of what they saw in your broadcasts, your films, your literature, your history. They saw your capacity for violence and cruelty. But that's only part of who we are, Jay protested. I know. I saw the other parts too. Your art, your music, your ability to love and sacrifice for each other. But the council could not understand those things. They have no context for them. At night, alone in the small chamber Dohan had arranged for her, Jai would sit on her bed and draw. Using materials Dohan had provided, she sketched maps of Earth from memory, continents, countries, the coastline of her hometown. She wrote down human stories, songs, and poems, determined not to let Earth's memory die with her. Sometimes she cried silently, thinking of her parents who would never know what happened to her, of her friends who had simply ceased to exist, of the future she had planned that was now impossible. But gradually something new began to grow alongside her grief. Purpose. 3 months after her awakening, Dohan came to her with news. The council is sending inspectors to evaluate my research, he said, his voice low and urgent. They will expect to see results. I need your help. Together they prepared presentations on Earth specimens, carefully avoiding any suggestion that these life forms might have value beyond their biological properties. Ji taught Dohan how to make his reports dry and technical, stripping away any hint of fascination or wonder. The inspectors came, 3 tall Sunwoo with impassive faces and cold eyes. They moved through the laboratory, examining Dohan's work with detached interest. When they questioned Ji, she kept her answers short and logical, just as Dohan had taught her. Your assistant is efficient, one inspector noted to Dohan. From which colony does she come? Eridani 4, Dohan replied smoothly. The atmospheric conditions there have resulted in some physical variations, but her work is exemplary. The inspector nodded and moved on. When they left, Ji let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. They suspect nothing, Dohan said, relief clear in his voice. We are safe for now. That night Dohan visited Ji's chamber. He seemed troubled. What's wrong? She asked. He hesitated, then held out a small device. I brought you something. Jie took it. The device projected a holographic image that filled her with shock and hope. It was Earth, not as it had been in space, but as it appeared in Sunwoo historical records. Details of human civilization, images of cities and natural wonders. Why are you showing me this? She asked, her voice trembling. Because I have been thinking about what you said, that humans are more than the Council believes. Dohan's eyes met hers. I think perhaps the Sunwoo were once more than we are now, and I think you can help us remember. In that moment, something shifted between them. The beginning of an alliance, perhaps even a friendship. Two beings from vastly different worlds, united by a shared belief that there was more to life than cold logic and efficient progress. Jay looked at the image of Earth floating between them. I will remember for both of us, she promised. 3 years passed. Ji stood by the viewing window in Dohan's laboratory, watching the stars slide by as the Sunwoo ship traveled through space. At 19, she had grown taller, her face thinner, her eyes holding a wisdom beyond her years. She wore the simple gray uniform of a Sunwoo research assistant, her black hair cut short in the alien style. To anyone passing by, she looked like just another member of the crew, albeit from a distant colony. Only Dohan knew the truth, that she was the last human carrying the memory of an erased world. GA, Dohan called from across the lab. The Central Archives has approved our request. We can access their historical databases tomorrow. She turned and nodded. This was the moment they had been working toward for months. As Dohan's assistant, Jay had limited access to Sunwoo information systems, but the Central Archives contained the full history of their civilization and possibly answers about Earth's fate. Do you think we'll find anything useful? She asked, quietly. Dohan's golden-flecked eyes met hers. I cannot be certain, but if there is any information about the technology used to remove Earth, it will be there. Their relationship had evolved over the years. Dohan was her protector and friend, but also part of the civilization that had destroyed her world. Ji had learned to live with this contradiction, to see Dohan as an individual separate from the actions of his people. But she never forgot. At night, she still drew maps of Earth, wrote down stories, and sang songs from home. Her collection of memories had grown to fill a hidden compartment beneath her sleeping platform. The next day, they entered the Central Archives, a vast chamber at the core of the ship. Curved walls rose high overhead, covered with glowing symbols. Information terminals dotted the floor, each providing access to different parts of Sunwoo knowledge. We must be careful, Dohan warned as they approached an empty terminal. The system records all searches. We will use the research codes I created for our official project. Their cover was simple. They were studying biological adaptation across different environments, a legitimate scientific inquiry that gave them reason to look at records of various planets and species. Ji sat at the terminal while Dohan stood beside her, keeping watch. She placed her hand on the smooth surface, and the system recognized her assigned identity. Screens of light appeared in the air before her. Begin with general planetary clearance procedures, Dohan suggested. Nothing specific about Earth. For hours, Jay carefully navigated through layers of information, moving from general topics toward more specific ones. She learned about Sunwoo expansion across the galaxy, their first contacts with other intelligent species, their development of faster-than-light travel. Then she found something unexpected. Dohan, she whispered. Look at this. The screen showed a list of planets with strange symbols beside them. Earth's name was there, along with 12 others. What does this mean? She asked. Dohan's face paled slightly. These are planets that have been removed from dimensional space. Earth was not. The first, Jay felt sick. There were others like us? According to this, yes. All within the last 500 years. With trembling fingers, Jay opened the file for the first planet on the list, Neridian. The images showed a world of vast oceans and floating cities, inhabited by a species that resembled tall, slender humans with webbed hands. The report was cold, detached. The Neridians were deemed unpredictably emotional and potentially disruptive to galactic stability. The Sunwoo Council had voted unanimously for their removal. One by one, Jai opened the files for each planet. All told the same story. Species, erased not because they posed any immediate threat, but because they exhibited traits the Sunwoo could not control or predict. They're afraid, she realized. They're afraid of anyone different from them. Dohan nodded slowly. Fear has always driven the Council's decisions, though they would never admit it. Fear disguised as logic. As they delved deeper, Ji discovered something even more disturbing. Reports of emotional contamination among young Sunwoo had increased over recent decades. The Council had implemented mandatory neural recalibration for any youth showing signs of excessive emotional response. They're doing this to your own people, Jie said, horrified, erasing emotions the same way they erased Earth. Before Dohan could respond, a new file caught her attention. It contained technical specifications for something called a dimensional phase shifter, the device used to remove planets from normal space. As she read, her heart began to pound. Dohan, this says the planets aren't destroyed. They're shifted into a parallel dimension cut off from this universe. Yes, he said quietly. I had suspected as much. Complete destruction would violate conservation laws. Gi gripped the edge of the terminal. If they still exist, could they be brought back? Theoretically, perhaps. But the energy requirements would be... A soft chime interrupted him. Another Sunwoo had entered the archives and was walking toward them. Quickly, Gi closed the files and opened their cover research project. The approaching Sunwoo was tall, with elaborate markings on his uniform indicating high rank. Researcher Dohan, the newcomer said. The Council wishes to speak with you regarding your latest reports. Dohan bowed slightly. Of course, Director, Minho. I will attend them immediately. As the director turned to leave, his eyes lingered on Jie for a moment too long. She kept her face blank, her posture respectful, but inside her heart raced. He suspects something, she whispered once the director had gone. Perhaps. Dohan looked troubled. We should leave. We have found more than I expected today. Back in Dohan's private quarters, they spoke in hushed tones. If Earth still exists in another dimension, we could bring it back, Ji said, pacing the small room. We could reverse what the Council did. The technology would be heavily guarded, Dohan cautioned, and the energy required would be enormous. We would need access to a stellar converter, but it's possible. Ji stopped pacing and faced him. Dohan, for 3 years I've lived with the belief that my home, my family, everything I knew was completely destroyed. Now you're telling me they might still exist, just out of reach. Dohan was silent for a long moment. Yes, he finally said. It is possible. But attempting it would mean opposing the entire Council. It would be considered treason of the highest order. Would you help me? She asked, her voice barely audible. Before he could answer, his communication device chimed. The message displayed made his eyes widen. The Council has ordered a full review of my research, he said, and they specifically want to interview my assistant. They know, Jay whispered. Not yet, but they suspect. Dohan moved to a panel on the wall and pressed, a hidden sequence. A compartment opened, revealing equipment she had never seen before. We must move quickly. If they discover who you really are... He didn't need to finish. They both knew what would happen. What do we do? Jie asked. Dohan handed her a small device. This contains everything we learned today, plus access codes to restricted areas of the ship. There are others like me, GI, Sunwoo, who question the Council, who believe we have lost something vital in our pursuit of perfect order. A resistance? The beginning of one, perhaps. His golden-flecked eyes met hers. The truth about Earth, about the other worlds the Council has removed. It could change everything. Jay clutched the device tightly. In her mind, she saw Earth as it had been. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds swirling in beautiful patterns. She thought of her family, her friends, her small coastal town. If there was even the slightest chance they still existed. "Tell me what to do," she said. Jai moved silently through the lower levels of the Sunwoo ship. These maintenance corridors were rarely used, their dim lighting and narrow passages designed for service drones rather than people. She wore a technician's uniform stolen from the supply bay, a hood pulled low over her face. In the 3 weeks since their discovery in the Central Archives, everything had changed. The Council had intensified their scrutiny of Dohan's research, assigning monitors to the laboratory who watched their every move. Jay could feel their cold eyes following her, searching for any sign that she was not what she claimed to be. She reached a junction and checked the small device Dohan had given her. The map showed she was close to her destination, an abandoned storage area in Section 47 far from the ship's center. Dohan had told her to go there tonight, promising that she would find allies. Part of her feared it might be a trap. Though she trusted Dohan, the pressure on him had been intense. The Council could use many methods to break even the strongest will, but she had no choice. Her quarters were no longer safe. Just yesterday she had returned to find her belongings searched, the hidden compartment where she kept her drawings of Earth disturbed. She had taken only what she could carry and slipped away during the night cycle. Ahead, a door glowed with a faint blue light. Jia approached cautiously and placed her palm against the scanner beside it. The device in her other hand transmitted Dohan's access codes. After a moment, the door slid open. She stepped inside, ready to run if necessary. The room was large, filled with storage containers and old equipment. At first, it appeared empty. Then figures emerged from behind the containers, 5 Sunwoo, of various ages. Among them stood Dohan. "You made it," he said, relief clear in his voice. "I was concerned when you didn't return to your quarters." "They searched my room," Gi said. "I had to leave." Dohan nodded and turned to the others. "This is Jai. She is the one I told you about." A female Sunwoo with unusually bright eyes stepped forward. "Is it true? You are from Earth? One of the erased worlds?" Jia hesitated, then nodded. "Yes. I was taken just before my planet was removed." The female's eyes widened. "I am Hana. My grandmother was from Lyria, the 4th world the Council erased. She was a scientist collecting samples off-planet when it happened. She lived her life in hiding just as you have." Ji felt a surge of emotion. She was not alone. There were others who had lost their worlds, their homes. "We are the remembered," said another Sunwoo, an older male with deep lines around his eyes. "Those who carry the memory of the worlds the Council tried to erase. And those who wish to restore the full range of Sunwoo emotions," added a younger male. "I am Jiho. I was scheduled for neural recalibration next cycle because I showed too much curiosity about art." One by one, they introduced themselves. Hana, whose grandmother had passed down stories of Lyria. Jiho, who had been creating music in secret. Teho, an engineer with access to the ship's power systems. Nari, a security officer who could move freely throughout the vessel. "And you all want to help bring back Earth?" Gi asked, hardly daring to hope. "Not just Earth," Teho said. "All. The worlds the Council has removed, and to end the practice forever." Dohan stepped forward. "What we discovered in the archives confirms what many of us have suspected. The Council's policy of erasing worlds is not about protection or stability. It is about control. They fear what they cannot predict or regulate. And they are doing the same to their own people," Nari added. The neural recalibration program has expanded. Even adults are now required to undergo regular emotion suppression. Jie looked around at these rebels, these Sunwoo, who had chosen to embrace the very emotions their leaders feared. What can we do? The council controls everything. Not everything, Dohan said. He pressed a sequence on his wrist device and a holographic display appeared in the center of the room. It showed schematics for a massive machine. This is the dimensional phase shifter used to remove planets. There are only two in existence. One is on the council homeworld. The other is on this ship. Jay stared at the image, her heart racing. You mean we could use it to bring back Earth? Potentially, yes. But it would require enormous power and precise calculations, and we would need to bypass multiple security systems. The bigger challenge, Hana said, will be changing the thinking of our people. Most Sunwoo accept the council's decisions without question. They believe emotion is primitive, dangerous. Then we must show them otherwise, Jay said firmly. Over the next months, their resistance grew. Working in secret, they built a network across the ship. G became their symbol, their inspiration. She shared stories of Earth, its diversity, its resilience, its creativity. She taught them human concepts that had been lost to Sunwoo culture, music, art, poetry. She described oceans and mountains, deserts and forests. She told them about holidays and celebrations, about laughter and tears. She showed them what it meant to be fully alive. Many young Sunwoo were drawn to these ideas. They came to secret gatherings where Jie would sing songs from Earth or tell stories passed down through generations of humans. For the first time, they experienced the full range of emotions their society had tried to suppress. Dohan and Taiho worked on understanding the phase shifter technology, analyzing the data Jai had downloaded from the archives. Nari provided security codes and warning of council movements. Hana collected stories from the few remaining survivors of other erased worlds. Jie often wondered what her parents would think if they could see her now. Would they be proud of the leader she had become? Would they understand the connection she had formed with these aliens, once enemies, now friends? 6 months into their resistance, disaster struck. A council spy infiltrated one of their meetings. Within hours, security forces were searching the ship for all members of the movement. The council knows everything, Nari reported during an emergency meeting in a different hiding place. They have ordered your termination, Jie. They consider you a dangerous anomaly that should never have been revived. And Dohan? Jie asked, fearing the answer. Sentenced to neural recalibration. They believe he has been contaminated by prolonged exposure to you. Jie felt cold rage building inside her. After all this time, the council still saw emotion as a disease, a contamination to be eliminated. When will they take him? She demanded. Tomorrow. The procedure will be performed in the medical center on level 1. Jie looked around at the gathered resistance members. There were 20 of them now, all risking everything for a cause that had once seemed impossible. Then we rescue him tonight, she said. And we do more. We free all those scheduled for recalibration. That would be 37 people, Nari said, checking her datapad. Most are young, but some are respected scientists and teachers. The council fears their influence. If we do this, Taiho warned, there will be no going back. We will be declared enemies of the Sunwoo. We already are, Ji said quietly. The only difference is that now they know our names. That night, they launched their daring rescue. Using Nari's security codes, they entered the medical center. The guards, unprepared for resistance from the usually compliant Sunwoo, were quickly subdued. One by one, they freed those scheduled for recalibration. Last of all, they found Dohan, already sedated and prepared for the procedure. Ji helped carry him to their escape craft, a small research vessel Taiho had modified for long-range travel, Azu. Alarms blared throughout the ship. They fled to an abandoned research station orbiting a distant moon. There, among the dust and forgotten equipment, they established their base. When Dohan finally awoke, Ji was sitting beside him. His golden-flecked eyes found hers. You should have left me, he said weakly. Never, she replied, taking his hand. We need you. Not just for your knowledge, but for who you are. Later, gathered in what had become their command center, Dohan revealed what he had discovered before his capture. I managed to download the complete technical specifications for the phase shifter, he said, displaying the data on a makeshift screen. And something more, the exact dimensional coordinates of Earth at the moment of its removal. A murmur went through the assembled rebels. Can we use this? Jay asked, hope rising within her. Dohan nodded slowly. With these specifications and enough power, yes. We could potentially restore Earth to this dimension. Jay looked around at these beings who had risked everything for worlds they had never seen, for emotions they were only beginning to understand. Then that's our mission now, she said. We bring back what was erased, not just Earth, but all that the Council has tried to remove. Worlds, emotions, memories, everything they feared, we will restore. 2 months had passed since their escape to the abandoned research station. What had once been a deserted outpost was now a bustling center of resistance. Over 100 Sunwoo had joined them, fleeing the increasing restrictions imposed by the Council. In the main chamber, GI stood before a large display showing their greatest creation, a modified dimensional phase shifter, built from Dohan's stolen plans. It was smaller than the Council's version, but, if their calculations were correct, just as powerful, the final power coupling is in place, Taiho announced, wiping his hands on his uniform. We are ready for the first test. Jie nodded, trying to hide her nervousness. At 20, she had become the heart of the resistance. The humans would have called her too young for such responsibility. The Sunwoo, who lived for centuries, considered her barely more than a child. Yet they followed her, drawn by her passion and the stories of Earth she carried. Begin the test sequence, she ordered. Taiho activated the device. The room hummed with energy as lights flickered across control panels. For a moment, the air before them seemed to ripple and thin, revealing a glimpse of something else. Another reality, another dimension. Then, the power failed. The machine went dark. What happened? Jie asked. Power surge, Dohan replied, checking the readings. The station's generators cannot provide enough energy for a full dimensional shift. Jie slammed her hand on the console in frustration. They were so close yet still so far from bringing Earth back. We need a more powerful energy source, Hana said. The only power source strong enough would be a stellar converter, Dohan said quietly, and the only one within reach is on the Council's main ship. A heavy silence fell over the room. They all knew what that meant. They would have to confront the Council directly. A suicide mission. Before anyone could speak, alarms blared throughout the station. Nari rushed in, her face pale. Council ships, she reported. A full battle fleet, they found us. On the security screens, they watched in horror as dozens of Sunwoo vessels surrounded the small moon. How did they find us? Jiho asked. It does not matter now, Dohan said grimly. What matters is what we do next. All eyes turned to Jie. She took a deep breath, remembering her small fishing town on Earth, the ocean she had loved, the family she had lost. She thought of all the other erased worlds, all the lives disrupted or ended by the Council's fear. We fight, she said firmly. Not with weapons, but with truth. Nari, can you access the Sunwoo communication network from here? Yes, but any transmission would reveal our exact location. They already know where we are, Jie pointed out. What they don't know is who we are, what we stand for. Understanding dawned on Dohan's face. You want to broadcast to the entire fleet, to the entire Sunwoo civilization, Jie corrected. Every ship, every colony, every outpost. They need to hear the truth about the Council, about the erased worlds, about what has been taken from them. Working quickly, Nari connected their systems to the Sunwoo network. Soon, a small red light indicated they were ready to broadcast. Jay stood before the camera. She wore no special uniform, carried no weapons, she was simply herself, the last human keeper of Earth's memory. Begin transmission, she said. Her image was broadcast to millions of Sunwoo across the galaxy. She spoke clearly, her voice calm and strong. "My name is Gi. I am a human from Earth, a planet the Council erased from existence 4 years ago. I was taken as a specimen moments before my world vanished. Everything I knew, my family, my friends, my home, was deemed dangerous and removed." She showed images they had collected, the 12 other erased worlds, the beings who had inhabited them. "The Council told you these worlds were threats to galactic stability. They told you that emotions are primitive and dangerous. They told you that perfect order is the highest goal." She paused, her eyes directly addressing the camera. "They lied. They feared what they could not control, the beautiful unpredictability of life. They feared the emotions they themselves once felt. So they erased worlds, and then they began erasing those same feelings from you." Across the Sunwoo fleet surrounding the moon, officers and crew members watched in silence. In homes and workplaces throughout Sunwoo space, people stopped to listen. "I want to tell you about Earth," Jay continued. "About oceans so vast you cannot see the other side. About mountains that touch the clouds. About forests filled with countless living things. About cities where millions of humans live together, creating art and music and stories." She described Earth's diversity, its languages, cultures, traditions. She spoke of human emotions, love, grief, joy, hope. As she talked, many Sunwoo listening felt something stir within them, emotions long suppressed beginning to awaken. "The Council did not just erase Earth from the stars," Jay said. "They tried to erase it from memory, but they could not erase it from my heart. And they cannot erase what you truly are from yours." She extended her hand toward the camera. "Join us. Help us restore what was taken, not just Earth and the other lost worlds, but the full range of emotions that make life worth living. Remember who you once were." The transmission ended. For several long moments, nothing happened. The Council ships remained in position, weapons ready. Then, something remarkable began to occur. One by one, ships broke from the Council fleet. First a small scout vessel, then 2 larger cruisers. They positioned themselves between the Council flagship and the moon, protecting the resistance base. On the communication system, messages flooded in from across Sunwoo space. Officers refusing orders, civilians demanding answers. Young Sunwoo, openly expressing emotions. Older ones remembering feelings long buried. The revolution had begun. In the chaos that followed, Gi saw their opportunity. While the Council struggled to maintain control of their fracturing forces, the Resistance seized a stellar converter from one of the defecting ships. With its power, they could activate their phase shifter at full capacity. 3 days later, they were ready. The device had been moved to a larger ship provided by their new allies. Joy stood with Dohan at the control panel, her hand steady as she input Earth's dimensional coordinates. "Are you certain about this?" Dohan asked. "If it works, Earth will return, but 7 years have passed there. Everything will have changed." Jai nodded. "Earth deserves to exist whether I can go home or not." She activated the phase shifter. The ship shuddered as enormous energy flowed through the device. Space itself seemed to bend and fold before them, reality twisting as dimensions merged. A blinding light filled the view screen. When it faded, there it was. Earth, blue and green and wrapped in white clouds, exactly as she remembered. Tears streamed down Ji's face as she looked upon her home for the first time in 4 years. Around her, Sunwoo crew members stared in wonder at the planet they had been taught to fear. "It worked," Dohan whispered, his voice filled with awe. "We brought it back." Sensors confirmed that Earth had returned to its proper place in space. Time had indeed passed differently there, 7 years compared to their 4. But it was back, and with it, the humans who had never known why their sky had suddenly changed one day, why stars had shifted position, why astronomers had been left baffled by unexplainable cosmic readings. In the weeks that followed, the Sunwoo civilization underwent a profound transformation. The Council's power crumbled as more of their secrets came to light. Neural recalibration was outlawed. Emotions, once feared, were now embraced as part of Sunwoo heritage. One by one, the other erased worlds were restored to their rightful places in the universe. 3 months after Earth's return, a small shuttle descended toward a familiar coastline. Inside, Jai watched through the window as her hometown came into view. It looked much the same, though there were new buildings she didn't recognize. Beside her sat Dohan, nervous about his first visit to Earth. "Will they accept me?" he asked. "After what my people did?" Jie took his hand. "They will need time, but humans understand forgiveness better than the Sunwoo ever gave them credit for." The shuttle landed on a quiet beach, the same beach where, 4 years earlier, Jie had been fishing when lights appeared in the sky. She stepped out onto the sand, feeling the ocean breeze on her face. She was home. Above, in the daylight sky, a new star shone faintly, a Sunwoo ship, the first of many that would come not as conquerors, but as friends, seeking to learn and to teach. The Sunwoo had erased Earth from the stars, but they could not erase it from the heart of the girl they abducted. And because of that heart, both humanity and the Sunwoo had been given a second chance.